transmigrated as a disabled protagonist. How should I continue the script? Chapter 34, To Save. The temporal space shifted. The light pink mist beside the black-haired boy disappeared, and the black-haired boy stretched his arms in all directions, searching for someone. Dororo? His world plunged into darkness. At 10 a.m. in the streets of Yokohama, cars and people bustled about. No one noticed a young man suddenly transforming into a boy, his eyes wide as he groped at the air like a blind person. Each person was preoccupied with their own life path, looking down at their phones or hurrying somewhere, unable to intersect with his world. Yakimaru, from beginning to end, never knew that he had transmigrated. His eyes saw the many changing people, and the life flames everywhere, though not pure white, but none of them were Dororo. He placed his hand against the wall and walked toward an empty spot where no one was. Dororo, where are you? The stubborn Yakimaru always believed that it was his own carelessness that caused him to get lost, not that she had abandoned him. He knew that if Dororo wanted to leave him, there were countless opportunities. But she would always find him within a day. Yakimaru, behind the mask, had no facial skin, and whenever he thought of her, he couldn't help but twitch his muscles. In his impression, this was meant to be a smile. He knew he would smile hideously, but she never despised him. From their first meeting, she was willing to see his appearance and then reach out to hold his hand. In the world 10 years later, Yakimaru slowly walked in his own world, solitary and self-contained, without noticing the car parked on the opposite side of the street. The owner of the car sat in the driver's seat, smoking a cigarette, with the entire inside of the car filled with smoke. Seeing Yakimaru walking ahead, the young man extinguished his cigarette, stepped on the accelerator, and kept the car at a certain distance from the other, following behind while observing the black-haired boy who seemed easily lured. Is it this person? Nakaharuchiya's gaze was indifferent, thinking back to the failure of the previous leader, and said, who writes in a will that at a certain time, in a certain place, they need to protect someone here? The Port Mafia succession method is bizarre. The previous boss supposedly died of illness, but in reality, it was murder. The boss before that supposedly retired, but in reality, they disappeared. And the boss before them, even worse. 2 years ago, someone from the highest ranks of the Port Mafia leaped to their death, bidding farewell to the world. Thinking about this, Nakaharuchiya felt his heart clench. Damn blue mackerel. Why does something always happen whenever I'm away on a mission? If Yakimaru was Dazai's lover, that's still a bit of a stretch, but taking care of a widow, if you consider it that way, makes sense. The problem is that Dazai didn't even go to the armed detective agency to find him while he was alive. No, even using the word find to describe it feels too much. You secretly loved him your whole life. The newly appointed Port Mafia boss, Nakaharuchiya, muttered under his breath as he monitored people on the street, following the will's instructions. It wasn't until he saw the armed detective agency members coming their way to Yakimaru. Nakaharuchiya sighed in relief. Just like that, the will is complete. There was no need to follow any further. For some reason, Nakaharuchiya felt a wave of sorrow, as if Dazai had completely severed his connection to this world. Even though he himself wasn't entirely sure what that blue mackerel had been striving for all these years, the other had finally finished what he wanted to do, leaving this world without a trace of regret. His hand turned the wheel, taking the exit at the junction. No one would know that the current Port Mafia boss had been idly following a member of the armed detective agency. Yosano Akiko was walking along the upper pedestrian path to shop for supplies when she was shocked to see Yakimaru. Yakimaru, how did you shrink? Yakimaru, one of the legendary figures of the armed detective agency. With extraordinary combat abilities, a physically disabled body, and an enigmatic background, he was discovered by Edogawa Ranpo at the age of 14 and naturally joined the armed detective agency, becoming the agency's beloved figure. The original 24-year-old Yakimaru didn't require her to worry too much, but the current Yakimaru. He looked almost the same as when they first met, small, thin, about the same height as her, and probably even lighter than she was. Without hesitation, she dropped the shopping bag in her hand, stepped over in her high heels, and rather than saying it was out of concern for a fellow member, it was better to say that ever since he joined the armed detective agency, she had been particularly attentive to him. "Why did you stop me?" Yakimaru was stopped by Yosano Akiko, and he paused his steps while observing the pure white life flame. He gestured height with his hands in front of his chest. This person wasn't Dororo. Dororo was shorter than him. Is it the same as before, unable to see or hear? A trace of worry appeared in Yosano Akiko's eyes as she quickly called other members for assistance. Something had happened to Yakimaru. Armed Detective Agency. This detective agency, located in an old, bustling office building, had developed into a well-known organization throughout Yokohama. At this moment, the members had set aside other commissions and surrounded a person. "Ranpo-san, please come and take a look. Yakimaru-san is so adorable, so small, just like a frail child from the countryside. Kenji, don't go over there." "Why?" "He's a bit nervous, we shouldn't surround him. Let's give him some space. Ranpo-san, come quickly." "That's right, Ranpo-san. It's like Yakimaru has completely forgotten about us. Could it be amnesia?" Oda-kun, offering him snacks is useless, he looks like he wants to run away right now. The door burst open with a loud bang, and the out-of-breath Edogawa Ranpo, who had been away on business, rushed back. The president stood behind him, his face cold, signaling the return of two pillars of the armed detective agency. Edogawa Ranpo strode into the corner where Yakimaru was. Under everyone's expectant gaze, he lifted his glasses. His emerald eyes opened, and he began to demonstrate his extraordinary analytical powers. "Huh? It's a different Yakimaru." As puzzling words flowed from his mouth, there was no need for an explanation. He could make others believe without doubt, he is a 14-year-old Yakimaru from a parallel world, familiar with me, but unfamiliar with you all. "Yakimaru, you recognize me, right? My life flame should not have changed." The famous detective Edogawa Ranpo put down his rationality for a moment, waved his hand in front of Yakimaru to ease his guard. As expected, seeing this familiar gesture, Yakimaru realized he had encountered an acquaintance and reluctantly recognized the identity of the person trying to save him based on their height and silhouette, a well-intentioned person attempting to rescue him. Kunikita Dalpo instinctively asked, "Why is he familiar with Ranpo-san?" Oda Sakanosuke, The honest man did not want to answer. Miyazawa Kenji joyfully said, "In other words, Ranpo-san is exactly the same as he was 10 years ago." Everyone from the detective agency. Edogawa Ranpo ignored the sounds around him, fully focused on raising Yakimaru's favorability. 10 years ago, he was 1 meter 68 tall, and 10 years later, he was still 1 meter 68. Moreover, he had a distinctive life flame, like an innocent child unaware of the world, which quickly made Yakimaru lower his guard. Edogawa Ranpo held his hand, "The great detective is right in front of you, quickly tell me your thoughts." "He has met Dororo, he will definitely help me find her." Yakimaru moved his hand slightly, bending his index finger, and impatiently wrote 3 Japanese characters on the back of his hand. Dororo. Edogawa Ranpo's green eyes darkened slightly. As expected, he was looking for him. Dororo? The armed detective agency members erupted in discussion. Is this a name? It sounds more like a nickname, not a real name. Does anyone recognize it? I think I've heard Yakimaru-san mention it once or twice before. When I asked him who it was, he didn't respond. Agency member Oda Sakanosuke couldn't figure out the answer, so he simply listened to his colleagues sharing their information. He pondered over another question in his mind. So parallel worlds do exist. Oda Sakanosuke noticed that the young Akutagawa Ryuunosuke he had raised was not joining the conversation. He walked over, patted his shoulder, and comforted him, knowing that the other was not good with words. If you have any clues, it's better to say them. Akutagawa Ryuunosuke quietly said, I don't know much about Yakimaru-san's past, I can't help. The armed detective agency members' majority are people with pure life flames, even if they have killed people, but over the years, they have abandoned evil for good, cleansing their souls, eliminating their sins, and becoming trustworthy individuals to Yakimaru. This is similar to his foster father, Jukai. Jukai used to be an executioner responsible for killing, but later became a righteous doctor, and during the time he raised Yakimaru, he restored his pure life flame. Take me to her, or have Dororo come find me. Yakimaru silently pleaded with Edogawa Ranpo, causing Ranpo's heart to become disturbed. Ah, there is no way to find Dororo. These words brought a silence over the office. They all heard the armed detective agency strategist speak the harsh words, "Your Dororo is dead, and has been dead for 2 years, so dead that he cannot die any further. Just stay here and wait peacefully to return." 2 years ago. Something in Oda Sakanosuke's heart skipped a beat. That was a sensitive point in time. The Port Mafia boss died at that time, sparking a conflict between the armed detective agency and the Port Mafia. Why do you keep thinking about him? Edogawa Ranpo reached out to touch Yakimaru's ponytail, diverting his attention, but a hint of frustration crept in as Yakimaru was entangled by this kind of person. He wasn't a good person, can't I be better than him? At least I never made you cry. Yakimaru covered his ponytail, the eyes on the mask on his face was so lifelike that it was difficult for anyone to lie to him. Help me. He remembered how Dororo liked to place things on him, and immediately found them, as a pile of eavesdropping devices once again appeared before everyone's eyes, making these people even more certain, Dororo definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Would an ordinary person monitor Yakimaru like that? Edogawa Ranpo placed those eavesdropping devices from 10 years ago back onto his clothes, full of resentment. Alright, I'll help you this time. Because you truly like this person, and you even have the potential to change. Edogawa Ranpo, like Yakimaru's Dororo, in his heart, held his hand but never intertwined fingers, showing more of a friendly kindness. With the help of fellow members, he flagged down a cab and took Yakimaru to a graveyard. 15 minutes later, the two stood in front of a well-guarded tombstone. There was no trace of a life flame, not a single pure white light. The Port Mafia people secretly observed the two visitors. Yakimaru still couldn't see Dororo. Edogawa Ranpo stared intently at him, then had him squat down and touch the gravestone before saying, "He's just a coward, willing to do evil things to achieve his goals, too scared to face you. You should accept this fact sooner. Don't cry for him a second time." A faint pink mist appeared, and the black-haired boy returned to his own world in confusion. Once again, the long-haired young man, still squatting, was silent after seeing clearly what he had been fumbling with. "Ranpo-san, don't you feel guilty for doing this? After all, he doesn't know, does he?" Edogawa Ranpo felt that he was a gentle and kind person, perfectly fulfilling Yakimaru's wish. If you can't see, then you don't need to know that the person you like has died. If you can't hear, then you don't need to be hurt by the truth. The distinction is fleeting, as long as Yakimaru returns and sees Dororo, it will be fine. Isn't that right? Edogawa Ranpo stared at the gravestone Yakimaru is fumbling with, feeling a bit envious of the dead. "Let's go back. I don't know the way. Are you really heartless enough to leave the great detective behind in a graveyard?" The one who raised Yakimaru in this world, is precisely this great detective. 24-year-old Yakimaru said miserably, "I still don't understand why he did that." Edogawa Ranpo walked ahead without turning back and replied, "Don't try to figure it out, you won't be able to comprehend his logic. If you keep going, you'll end up like the second Oda Sakanosuke." Yakimaru whispered, "Not Oda Sakanosuke." In his previous life, he had read his works. Edogawa Ranpo nodded, "Very interesting, I'll tell him when I get back." Yakimaru shouted in panic, "No, don't." The two walked away. In the suburbs of Yokohama, in a building of an orphanage, the over 40-year-old director turned off all the equipment in the room. Finally, he used a lighter to ignite the yellowed envelope in his hand. "Dazai-kun. What is the opportunity you are waiting for? You, who should have died long ago, didn't hesitate to use his hand to manipulate the time machine, extending through time. Behind all this, there must be a reason for you to make Yakimaru go to another parallel world first. Over there, is there a chance for you to hope for him to be complete and healthy? Who can save Yakimaru? His lips curled up slightly, thinking about how the Port Mafia had paid over $1 billion for a lifetime membership illusion, and how the Millefiori provided the latest fake body, with the two forces working together to forcibly restore Yakimaru to a normal human. To repair a puppet born cursed, you really do know how to squander resources. Poor successor Chiyukuen. The ashes scattered, and the orphanage returned to its usual state, with the director leading a blonde-haired young girl to take care of the other orphans. The world won't stop functioning just because someone's gone. People like you, people like me. Chapter 34 End.